is River, and I am a teacher with Midwest Food Connection, and I am here today to teach you how to make my favorite oatmeal pancake recipe. So the first thing you'll need to do is get the permission from the adults in your house, make sure it's alright to do some cooking. Maybe they'll want to help you out as well. And then the second thing you can do is, if you would like to follow along with this video, then you'll want to make sure you have all of the ingredients and the utensils that you'll need right in front of you, ready to go. So I'll tell you all the things you're going to need first. So you will need milk. Today I'm using flax milk, but you can use any other plant-based milk or cow's milk, whatever you have in the house works. You will also need oats. I got this really nice big bag of oats. Need some rolled oats. If you want to use instant oats, you can. It's not quite the same, but it still works. You'll need 2 eggs. You will need brown sugar or maple syrup or other sweetener that you have will work as well. You'll need some whole wheat flour. You will need baking powder. You will need a little bit of salt. And then for utensils, you're going to need a 1 cup measuring cup. You will also need a 1/4 cup or an 1/8 cup if you have it. 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon, a little bit of a bigger bowl, a little bit of a smaller bowl, a wooden spoon or a rubber spatula for stirring, and a fork or a whisk for whisking. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you need to do in this recipe is let the oats sit in the milk for a little bit. Let them soak and get a little bit softer. If you're using instant oats, you don't need to worry about this step, so you don't even have to do it. But I'm using rolled oats, so I do need to do this step. So I'm going to take my milk, and I want to do a full cup of milk. There it goes, pouring in. And I want to do a 1/4 cup, but not the full 1/4 cup. I want to do just about half of it. It's okay if it's not exact. There we go. And the next thing I want to do, of course, is my oats. So I'm going to take that cup again. I just need 1 cup of oats. And I'm going to fill that up to the top. Now I'm going to pour that in there. Alrighty, so while we're waiting for our oats and our milk to soak, we are going to measure our dry ingredients. So the first one we're going to do is our whole wheat flour. Now, I forgot to tell you that you're also going to need a 1/2 cup. So if you need to pause the video real quick and go grab that, you can. But we're going to need 1/2 cup for our flour, for our whole wheat flour. So the flour, you can use a knife to scrape off the top, but you don't really need to. You just kind of shake, shake, shake until it's about level. And it's okay if it's not totally exact. So we're going to put that in there. And next we're going to do our baking powder. We just need 1 teaspoon of baking powder. The baking powder has that nifty little ledge there that you can use to make sure that it comes off nice and clean like that. So we'll dump that in as well. 1 teaspoon. We just need a little bit of a dash of salt here. Just a little bit. I'm just going to do about 3 cranks. If you have salt that is in kind of like a can or one of those cardboard containers, you could just put a little bit in your hand, pinch some out, pinch and pinch. We don't need too much. So now our oats and our milk have been soaking for a little while. We're going to add some more of the wet ingredients into them, the things that we don't want to add into the flour right now quite yet. So first we'll do some brown sugar. And now with the brown sugar, we're going to do just 1 tablespoon. When you're measuring brown sugar, you want to make sure that you are doing something called tightly packing it. And that just means that you're pushing that brown sugar into the measuring, whatever measuring utensil you're using. And you're going to take it and you'll dump it right in. Sometimes it doesn't want to come out. And then you'll mix it on in. next we need to crack our eggs and beat our eggs. And you might want to do that in a separate bowl first. It makes it so that it's more fluffy and just easier to incorporate into the oats and the milk and the brown sugar. So you might feel nervous about cracking an egg if you've never done it before. Or maybe you've done it before and you got shell in your bowl. The thing about cracking an egg is it just takes practice. And that's why we do it right in this bowl, because if we get shell in there, it's no big deal. We can just take it right out. So the first thing you're gonna do is make a crack right in the middle here. And I like to use the bowl to do that. So now you can see I made a little crack there. I'm gonna take my thumbs like this, and I'm going to just pull the egg apart. I have to be gentle though, because if I'm not gentle, then the whole egg will just smush right in my hands. All right, I'll do one more egg. We need 2 eggs for this recipe. So take that egg just like before. Make that crack just like that. Pull it gently apart, and there we go. Now, if you did get some shells in your bowl, no big deal. You'll just take them out with your finger, with the fork or the spoon. Now, when we have raw eggs, there might be germs in those raw eggs, so we do need to wash our hands after this step. So the recipe says we need to beat the egg, which just is like stirring, but it's a little bit different. We want to do this before we put the eggs into our wet ingredients. And it is basically like stirring. I like to use a fork. If you have a whisk, you can use a whisk, but a fork works too. And it's kind of like stirring, but if I just stir like this, it's not gonna work as well as if I do a different technique that works better to beat the egg. And when I do this technique, I actually wanna use my fork more like this, more horizontally, and kind of make little circles in the bowl. Do you see how I'm kind of going up and down and up and down and up and down? Of course, I need to be careful not to lose any of that egg. I have to still be gentle. But when I do this, it's going to do a better job of beating the egg than if I just go like this. This works too, though. This works too. So if this is where you're at, that's just fine. But if you want to try working on that beating technique, think about making circles on the side of the bowl with your fork. And you can do this for maybe a minute, maybe a little less, till you're feeling tired. All right, next we'll add those eggs to our oat mixture here. Just add those right in. You can use my spatula here to get that extra egg out. There we go. And then we have one more ingredient left. This ingredient is the oil. And we needed 2 tablespoons of oil. Today I used coconut oil, so I already went ahead and melted that, but you can use any kind of oil. Now when you're using coconut oil or butter or something like that, you do need to be careful when you're putting it in to make sure that you stir it right away, kind of quickly, because otherwise all the oil will kind of get hard really fast when it gets cold and stay in one place. So I'm going to use my spatula again here, and I'm going to get my fork ready so that I can stir right away. And my coconut oil is already sort of gotten a little bit harder, but that's okay. So I'm going to stir this around to make sure everything's incorporated. I was a little bit worried about this, and my coconut oil did get a little bit clumpy there. If I can see the clumps of the coconut oil, I can just use my fork to kind of smush them up and then stir them back in, and that should be okay. So the final step before cooking is to mix your dry ingredients in with your wet ingredients. But before you do that, I want you to make sure that you're ready to cook pretty much right away after you're done mixing. You don't want to let that batter sit for too long before using it. And so once you're ready, you can go ahead and take your dry ingredients and just dump them right into your wet ingredients. Now when you're stirring the wet and dry ingredients together, you don't want to stir for too long or for too much because you don't want it to get over stirred. So you just want to stir until you can't really see any more flour. And then you're actually gonna wanna stop. So I'm gonna stop right there. That looks perfect. And now we're ready to start cooking. Do you see all those bubbles? Those are from the baking powder. They're having a reaction, a chemical reaction, which is gonna help it to be bubbly inside our pancakes. All right, once we're ready to cook, we need to heat up the pan. Now remember that this is a job for adults and kids together. So make sure you have permission if you're working at the stove. So I'm gonna start my stove up here, and I'm gonna put it on like medium low, more towards the low end, but not too low. And I'm gonna give it a little time to heat up. I'm using a non-stick pan today. You can also use a cast iron pan if you have one, and any pan will do really. So now that my pan is hot, I can add a little bit of oil. I'm gonna add a little bit of coconut oil like I was using before. Put that in there, and it's gonna go ahead and melt. And while it's melting, I can help it to go all the way around the pan so that the whole pan is coated. We're pretty much ready to cook now. So the next step that I want to do is I want to take I like to use my 1/4 cup scoop. I think that's a nice amount of batter. I'm going to take a scoop of batter, be careful of the drips, and go ahead and put that right in my pan. And this pan looks like it has room for probably about 4 pancakes, I would say, maybe 3. If at this stage your pancakes are really runny and they're liquidy and they're going all over the pan, then you might need a little bit of extra flour. If they're really, really thick and they're not flattening out, then you might need a little extra milk. So for the next part, you might need some patience, but you're going to want to let your pancakes sit until they look a little bit like this, till they're bubbly on the top and the sides. See how there's bubbles all around there? That means that they are ready to be flipped. All right, they're looking nice and golden brown. You're going to want to let them cook for a little bit longer on this side. Once you see that they're pretty golden brown on the other side too, then you can take them off and eat them up. I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. Thanks for watching.